Hey everybody, Mr. Chris here. Today we're going to talk about how to tune without a tuner, the old-fashioned way, and the reasons why. Okay, so we're going to start off with the reasons why. The way that the notes roll up the neck or the notes roll through music in music theory is on a guitar, every fret, every time you go from one fret to the next, that's considered a half step. If you do 2 frets, that's a whole step. Now, between all of the letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, in music, as you're going up the scales, there is a whole step between all of the letters except for 2 places. The 2 places where there's a half step where the letters are right next to each other, the notes are right next to each other. And this also works out on a keyboard where the white keys are touching and there's no black key in between them. That is E and F and B and C. So as you go up the neck, you would start, say, with the E string, and then the next fret would be E to F. There's nothing in between them, so F. But between F and G, there is a black key on the piano or a space, and that is either going to be called F sharp or G flat, depending on what key you're in. Different keys will use, whether they're sharps or flats, different keys come out in different ways. So as we go up the E string, it goes E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. Now that's the 5th fret. If you press the 5th fret of the E string, you get an A. Just so happens that the next string in standard tuning is tuned to an A. So back in the old days, we would have a tuning fork, and it was a long kind of U, a steel U with a line that would come down the bottom of it and a ball on the end of that. And you bang that against a table or something like that, it would start to resonate, and you put that against your guitar, and the note would come out. Usually it would be either an E or an A. And then you'd match your string to that, and from that you'd tune the rest of the strings. So this relationship of the 5th fret of the lower sounding but higher on the guitar but lower sounding string to the next string, whereas the 5th fret equals 0 on the next string, is pretty much how it lays out for all of the strings except for one relationship. And that is the relationship between the G and the B. The way the G string lines up, you go G, G sharp A sharp B. The B is on the 4th fret, so it's actually back 1 fret to get your B. But then when you go from the B string to tune the E string, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, you're back on the 5th fret. So the relationship between all of the strings is the same except for that one relationship between G and B where you'd have to go back. And in this sense, as you're working your patterns out, in your head or on the fretboard, you have to compensate by raising the B string up by 1 fret in order to make all of the things match, i.e. when you're playing an octave from, say, the E string to the D string, it's 3 frets and 3 strings, and you get an octave. But if you cross the B line, then you have to go, let's say you start on the D string. If you just do 3 strings, 3 frets on a B string, it's flat because you have to compensate for the fact that it was 1 fret off when you tuned it. So you'd have to go up 1 fret to make it, to give you your octave. Okay, anyway, so that's kind of how the relationship is between the strings. So let's say this guitar is out of tune a little bit, usually all down. So what you do is you'd get your first tone, your E. You can go to a piano and hit an E, or get a tuning fork and hit an E, or you can just go with the way the guitar is if you're not playing to anything else. Or you can go to the internet and get an E. They're out there. Find that E, and then you go to the 5th fret and match it. Oh. Now, in order to tighten the string on the top 3 here, I'm going to be going counterclockwise, different from the clock. So I'm going to be twisting it this way. And I find that sound in my head, and then I match it. And now I have my A string. Then I go to the 5th fret of the A string. D is already in tune. Go to the 5th fret of the D string for my G. My G is a little flat. Raise it up. Okay, now I'm going to tune the B string, but I have to go to the 4th fret of the G. Next is my B. Now the relationship between the B string and the E string goes back to the old way, which is the 5th fret. So I go to the 5th fret of the B. And that is now in tune. And that is one way to tune your guitar without a tuner. There's another way. I'm sure there are several. So let me undo a couple of the strings here. Now these are called harmonics. Okay, so let's talk briefly about how to find our harmonic tones. Basically, for the harmonics that we're going to use on the 5th fret and the 7th fret, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put your finger very lightly, a very light touch. You're not pressing anything down. You're just touching very lightly the skin of your finger against the string right on top of the fret, directly on top of the actual fret. And when you do hit it, strike it, and make the tone, you want to pull your finger away. Of course, if you leave your finger there, it kills the note, it dulls the sound. So you hit it, take your finger away, and it rings for a while. Yeah, like that. And that's basically how you find a harmonic tone. It's going to take a little bit in the beginning. You got to figure out, it starts off kind of dead, or you pressing too hard, or not enough, or something. But you'll find it. But really, it's once you hit it, you pull the finger away, and that's the big mistake I think a lot of people make in the beginning. Is they leave their finger on the string, and then it kind of kills it. Okay, there we go. Now harmonics are a little bit more difficult to find, but it's not impossible, obviously, and it's something I think all guitar players should work on. So basically the harmonics that we're going to be interested in are found on the 5th fret and the 7th fret. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to go from the 5th fret of the lower string, the E string, and we're going to go to the 7th fret of the A string. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to match these tones. Now, what you're looking for is there's a wave that happens. The farther away they are from being in tune, the wave is faster. As they become closer to being in tune, the wave slows down and eventually matches, and then the volume raises just ever so slightly. Sometimes you can hear it. So let's try to see if we are close to in tune. That's way off. Now, you hear that wave back there? See, as they get closer in tune, the wave slows down. And then it disappears. That wave is kind of still there, but moving real slow, so I'm very close. That's pretty good. So now let's go to the next one. So this is from the A string 5th fret to the D string 7th fret. Now it sounds like the D's a little bit high. Let me check my A again against the E. Now let's check it against the D. Still a little high, so I'm going to bring the D string back a little bit. That sounds better. Okay, now we're going to hit the D string to the G string. I'm going to make it untuned just so we can get an example here. Now you hear that wave, it's really fast. Now listen to the wave slow down as they get closer. eventually the wave goes away because the notes aren't fighting each other anymore. Now they're with each other on the same plane. Okay, now to get to the B string and the E string, the two silver strings on your steel string guitar there, we're going to go to the 7th fret. We're going to start with the 7th fret of the E string up here with the large E on the bottom tone, 7th fret, and that's going to match the open, just the open B string. All right, and then subsequently, same thing, the 7th fret of the A string gives us the open E string. Now I'm going to check it with my 5th fret idea of tuning. And everything's in tune. So that's basically the basic way to tune a guitar without a tuner. You can find a tone on the piano that matches any of the strings and then reverse engineer that, or use a tuning fork if you happen to have one lying around somewhere, or maybe a harmonica or some other instrument that you know has a solid either an E, an A, a D, a G, a B, and then match the string to that and go from there. Or you can just go out and get an electric tuner. Everybody can just go out and get an electric tuner, that's completely fine, but I think it's important to understand the spatial relationship between the strings, and one of the best ways to do that is to tune this way, the old way, without the electric tuner. And if you are going to get an electric tuner, just make sure it's something that you're comfortable using. I have my favorite. My favorite is I use the Snarks. I think this is one of the greatest inventions of all time. They come in many different colors and they come in many different styles. There's a lot of things you can do with the Snark, but they're relatively cheap and they're relatively accurate. Before that, we had them on the stomp boxes on the floor. A lot of the professionals still do that on the stomp boxes on the floor, or they have oscillation tuners, different types of things. Anyway, that's how you would tune a guitar in the wild without an electric tuner if you needed to. Okay, and as I said, if you don't have a tuning fork or anything and you pretty much know where you are on one of your strings and that's close enough, you just tune to that and then your guitar is in tune with itself and you can play all the songs you love to play. But then you might have to retune in order to play with other people, tune up to what an actual E is or an A or something like that. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope that you like and subscribe, because it really does help the channel. So thank you very much, and have fun playing guitar.